Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm reviewing an ink from Octopus Fluids. That ink today is this. This is their Burgundy ink. This is the 30ml bottle it comes in. Nice simple bottle, reminiscent of a number of other brands. One of those bottles that when it gets a little bit low, you can sit it flat on this surface and fill up a little bit deeper into the well of the bottle there. I'm going to show it on some different paper, show a few tests, that kind of stuff, and show a couple of color comparisons. So let's get going. First things first, here is the ink on a coloring card. You see it is a rather pink-red burgundy. It's a light burgundy for sure. Some other burgundy sort of themed inks tend to run a little bit darker, a little bit more brown perhaps. This runs very much on the pink-red end of the scale. It's very nice. It's got a nice flow. Let's see it on some paper. So we're going to start with it here today on Tomo River paper. This is 68 GSM Tomo River, the original old stock in a no longer made travel bond travel gear notebook. So let's talk about it. So I had it in the TWSBI Go Broad and the TWSBI Go Extra Fine. You can see here again, it sort of runs that pinky red end of burgundy. It's beautiful actually. It's got some lovely shading. It's nice. Okay, let's talk about the 5 points. Firstly, this is one of 22 colors that Octopus Fluids has in their standard range. They've got like all the usuals, blue, black, red, green, blue, black colors, you know, and then a range of really beautiful colors. Aubergine is particularly nice, moss green, absolutely stunning. So 22 exciting colors from this lineup. They're made in Dresden in Germany, one of my favorite cities. So, you know, German company making pretty decent ink. I've said here, made by chemists to exacting conditions. So, Octopus Fluids traditionally has been known as a company for things like printer ink and those kinds of things. And one of the guys, the chemists associated with the company, decided he was going to start making fountain pen ink, and why not? And has made this beautiful range of inks, and they are made with like great attention to detail in terms of the chemical analysis and makeup and the pH level and all those kinds of things. I've said here, fourth point, that Octopus also make inks for diplomats. So if you've used any of the diplomat inks, they are made by Octopus. So now, I have a little video about a couple of diplomat inks. I will link to that below. I'll also link to another video I made about the Octopus inks as well. I've also put here, just as an interesting note, that it's also available. A lot of these inks are also available in a 250ml refill bottles. So while you can get the standard 30ml bottle, you can also get one that is 250ml. So if you find an ink you love, you will never, ever run out. Let's talk about the performance. Okay, I've said it's a beautifully saturated magenta toned red. So that's that pinky red sort of color coming through. It's not quite magenta like, I consider it like Yamabudo from a Pilot de Roche-Zuku to be a very burgundy, magenta red ink. This is sort of more burgundy than that. Nice, dark, warm sort of tone, which is beautiful, with excellent flow, both in the extra fine and in the broad nibs. It writes very nice. I've said it's got low water resistance, and I'm going to sort of explain that. Like you can see here, where I put the water down and then I dab it up quickly, you can still make out a lot of the writing. But where you put so I drew a triangle here, and then I moved around with the water brush pen and sort of let it dry, and the water test I did on Rhodia shows the same. It just spreads. Because this is a highly saturated ink and it moves well on the page, it's not permanent, it's not water resistant, it's going to move around, it's going to smudge, you're gonna lose your writing. If this ends up in, like, I hope it never does, but like if your writing ends up in a flooded room or something like that, if this is the ink you use, you're gonna lose most of it. But in saying that, it makes it nice for, you know, watercolor ink use, which is one of the reasons I love these inks. So it's got a medium dry time. So after 2 seconds, it's very wet. And after 20, it's still pretty wet, but you can see it starting to settle on the page then, so that's quite nice. The extras, I put nice shade. I think the shading is absolutely stunning. The lighter shade is still dark enough to be clearly red, or red in both sense, the color red and red as in being able to be, you know, red with the eyes. It's good, so it's nice contrast. Minimal sheen, there's like a couple of hits of like a goldy green sheen just sort of around here, but not enough to write home about. There's no shimmer, and as I said, mid to low water resistance. Okay, so let's now look at it on some other paper. I'll start at the lowest end here with the student notepad paper. This is really lecture pad paper. You can see it spreads a little bit. The color, of course, is a lot more flat, but it looks okay. It's still, you know, it still looks good. On the reverse, a lot of that has come through. It's not a subtle ink, it's not a particularly gentle ink, and that high saturation and that high sort of wetness does lend itself to this kind of performance on lower end paper. Now on simple ATGSM printer paper, once again, we still get the spreading and the feathering a little bit, and the reverse has a lot coming through. But it looks nice, the color looks good, albeit flat. But yes, this is not an ink for sort of non-fountain pen friendly paper. If we have it here on Rhodia, you see like there's that beautiful dark red, purple, pink shading of it. It's quite lovely. It's quite, you know, it reminds me of maybe a little bit like a slightly darker version of something like that Star Ruby from Pelican a couple of years ago. But here on Rhodia, it looks beautiful. The wetness, of course, very wet, lovely shading, good sort of quality of color. And there's that water test that I mentioned where I put that down on a nice sort of crosshatch and just let it dry, and it spreads right out. We get a halo of the color around the edge, and then it's this wash of pink. The reverse of this page, much as we expect, a bit of ink came through on the swatch because it's not a gentle ink, but none in the writing, and only where the water went down over here as well, it has come through. Looking at the chromatography here, it's everything you would expect. You can see how saturated this ink is by that line left behind and just how much ink moves up through. And we get a sort of through the pink to the sort of grey, purple, red, and then another hit of purple around the top, which I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up particularly well, but it's nice. It's actually a very beautiful gradient on this chromatography. Time for some color comparisons, and we'll start there with Octopus Burgundy. I wanted to show it alongside a couple of inks just to put it into context. Firstly, I wanted to put it alongside it like a proper red. So my go-to proper red is Waterman Audacious Red, which is very, very red. You can see that this is a burgundy. It's got that pinky magenta tone to it. And then I'm going to put it alongside Diamine Writer's Blood, just to show just that it's not a deep, dark purple burgundy red. It's sort of more like that pinky burgundy. And then two more inks. One is Diamine Matador for a red with a little bit of personality. And then a Robert Oster Burgundy, where you can see that this is a much more pink burgundy as opposed to that reddy brown burgundy like I mentioned earlier. So what does this cost for the 30 ml bottle? In Europe, it's an amazing price, $7.95 for the bottle, or €7.95 that is. Great price. It puts into a very, very competitive part of the market. Here in Australia, it's available from Homes and Living for $21.95 for the bottle, which once again puts it in a fairly decent price in comparison to a number of other brands. Not quite as good a price as things like Diamine, but Diamine is incredible value ink. So, but 30 mils for $21.95. It's an okay price here in Australia, but a very good price at the Euro price. So I've given this 3.5 out of 5. It's an enjoyable color and a decent performer, particularly on fountain pen friendly paper. A good all-rounder for a red with some personality. If you want to use a red, or you want things to stand out on a page, for underlining or correcting, stuff like that, this is probably a fairly decent ink for that. It's got a nice tone, it's got a nice shade, it contrasts well on the page. But if you're using non-fountain pen friendly paper, this is one that you might want to use finer, drier nibs with, which is kind of like a general rule anyway, but I will make that point on this ink in particular. So this was Octopus Fluids Burgundy. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce, and please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you would like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for review, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your inks, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you later.